Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna talk about the top 5 best Canon Prime Lens. Starting at number 5. Canon f85mm f1. 8 USM. I'm fully aware that Canon f1. 2 owners will stop reading right about now. They may even spit at the screen, there's even at f1. 4 version of this 85mm, but I still stick by this humble f1. 8 version. Let's deal with the elephant in the room first. Why would I not recommend the Canon 85mm f1? 2L2A lens that's widely regarded as one of the greatest portrait lenses ever created. One word. Slow. And if you needed 3 more, huge, heavy, and expensive however, to all those wedding photographers who insist on using the Canon 85mm f1. 2L lens in low light during the reception, I'll put money on at least 50% of your shots being missed. So, onto the Canon f85mm f1. 8 USM. What makes this little-known lens such an incredible bargain is another kick in the balls to Nikon users. This Canon version features manual focus override, meaning you can grab the focus ring to make manual adjustments, even in autofocus. This is a hugely underrated advantage, as any Nikon user who's had to take their eyes off the action to fiddle with a manual focus switch will tell you. 85mm is a popular focal length for portrait photographers, or for those who want to get closer to the action without moving their feet. 85mm still retains the feeling of being involved in the image, rather than longer focal lengths that make the viewer more of a spectator. For more information and latest price, check out the product links in description underneath the video. At number 4. Canon cameras US 6310B002 f40mm. Yes, that's right, I'm recommending the older Canon f24 to 105mm f4 liters is USM as opposed to the newer V2 of this lens. This one is 100 grams lighter than its successor, smaller and cheaper too. The new version has better image stabilization, but I'd still go with this older version every time. 24 to 105mm is another focal range that Nikon doesn't offer. Sigma has tried to fill the gap, but it falls short of this Canon version. The Canon f24 to 105mm f4 liters is USM is Canon's highest performance mid-range zoom available, and even at f4, deserves its place on this roundup. Why do I specify f4? Well, if you're a professional who needs lenses to work in near pitch black situations, f4 just ain't gonna cut it, even with that excellent image stabilization. However, for the rest of us, f4 is perfectly fine for our needs. Halfway of my listed number 3. Canon f35mm f1. 4L, USM. With modern technology, it's commonly assumed that newer always means better. I know many photographers who will rush out to buy the new version of a camera or a lens, despite never having used it before. That's what happened when Canon released the V2 of its hugely popular Canon 35mm f1. 4 liters, one of the best Canon lenses for wedding photography. Then people realized their mistake, and with their tail between their legs, returned to the trusty older versions. Don't get me wrong, the Canon 35mm f1. 4L2 is an amazing lens. When shot wide open, the quality is better than the original version, but it's only if you're really examining 2 photos shot with both lenses side by side that you may notice the differences. Aside from XO naming the VAI the sharpest Canon lens and the marginal advantage when shot at f1. 4, I'd still recommend you save some money and go with the original version. Newer doesn't necessarily mean better. Nor does more expensive. There are lots of sites which discuss why this 1998 lens is actually better than the 2015 one, so I won't go into it here. However, what I will say is that if you're lucky, you can still get a new or used Canon 35mm f1. 4 liters for a bargain price. Coming in at number 2. Canon cameras US 6310B002. This is a gem of a lens and makes me envious that there's no Nikon equivalent. It's without a doubt a great lens for travel if you have no need to zoom. I'd actually name it Canon's top lens for travel. At less than an inch tall, the Canon f40mm f2. 8STM looks like an overweight lens cap. It's known as a pancake lens for this very reason. Attaching it to the front of your Canon DSLR will bring a smile to your face at only 0. £29. You'll notice no difference in weight to just your camera body on its own despite its small size, the Canon f40mm f2. 8STM features impressive optics which render mind-blowing sharpness, edge-to-edge, even wide open. Personally, I find 50mm too long for the majority of my wedding photography work, so choose to stick with a Nikon 35mm lens. However, I often struggle indoors with 35mm being just that little bit too wide, including more of the surroundings than I'd like. As I said before, I'm rather envious of Canon shooters for this lens. STM is Canon's near-silent motor mechanism. It's not 100% silent on the Canon f40mm f2. 8STM, but for stills photography, it's as quiet as it needs to be. There's only very slight distortion and no chromatic aberration that you'll notice, but you'll see some vignetting when shot wide open at f2. 8. Personally, I like a bit of in-camera vignette, but if you don't, it only takes one click in Lightroom to fix it. And number 1. Canon f50mm f1. 8 STM lens. Just like on the best Nikon lenses post I published recently, this nifty 50 from Canon is first out the gate in this list. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to recommend the other 50mm lens that practically every Canon shooter on Shotcut owns, i.e. the Canon 50mm f1. 2 liters. Even though the f1. 2L is an incredible lens, it's a bit too specialist for this roundup. f1. 2 can be useful, but for the majority of applications, the depth of field is just too shallow. Sorry, Canon wedding photographers, I'd also recommend this lens over the now discontinued 50mm f1. 8.2 version, since it's faster to focus and has 2 extra diaphragm blades, meaning smoother bokeh. Okay, with that out of the way, what makes the Canon f50mm f1. 8STM worthy of a spot here? Why does it have over 600 positive reviews on Amazon? And why is it Canon's #1 best-selling lens? Having a wide-angle lens that's this light and fast to acquire focus is just a joy to use. On a cropped sensor Canon,